Did Donald Trump just force this $17.8 trillion Bitcoin backflip by being the most crypto-friendly president? Now, first, we've got to line out this order of events on how China might be now into Bitcoin and being super bullish on Bitcoin, to say the very least. First, we're talking about HK Asia Holdings, where it becomes the first company in China to adopt a Bitcoin treasury. This is on the heels of GameStop and GME absolutely exploding. But that is beside the point here. We're seeing HK Asia Holdings becoming the first public company in Greater China to adopt Bitcoin treasury strategy, signaling a shift in regional adoption. But why is this significant? You see the HK there, right? You're saying, hey, Brandon, this might be Hong Kong. Well, the Hong Kong ETF Bitcoin ETF issuer has been saying that China is preparing a shift into Bitcoin and crypto. So it's not only just what we're seeing out of China, it's what we're seeing out of Hong Kong that is more and more interesting here. Why? Well, because of the relationship between China and Hong Kong. As many of you know, the one country, two systems has been signed into basic law in Hong Kong and China. So now what does that mean? That means essentially that there is one country, according to China. Hong Kong and China are both under one roof, so to speak, but there's two financial systems. So it's been rumored and speculated that China is essentially, or that Hong Kong is essentially the testing ground for China going forward, which is very interesting when you see moves like what was just made by HK Asia Holdings, because this move signifies what China has been rumored to have here, where this Hong Kong ETF is saying, hey, they're looking for a shift into Bitcoin and crypto. There's going to be a change in tone, a change in outlook, a change in how they are approaching Bitcoin and crypto, because this Hong Kong ETF is now saying that the Asian country is looking into Web3 and crypto and might consider a stance on digital currency, although crypto is banned in China and the Chinese government. And so it's not just this one article that's saying it. Many are looking at China potentially warning and warming up to Bitcoin and crypto after years of, quote, playing hardball, right? So it means that the Chinese government is looking at all things relative to Bitcoin because of what President Trump has been doing. In fact, an article from Forbes is saying, watch out, forget Trump. China is quietly priming a $1.4 trillion Bitcoin price move because they're looking to, quote, front run Donald Trump. All of these countries are getting more and more bullish on Bitcoin. And the key factor here is that they're looking at these articles, or they're looking at Donald Trump, and he is simply doing all these things out in the open, out in public. So they're looking at these things and saying, hey, wait on a minute. We want to have Bitcoin as well. And if Trump and America is going to tell us that they're going to be doing all these things, if they're doing all these things publicly, we're going to want to do it first. We could do that quietly. So we want to front run Donald Trump and the US government for everything, right? So what is next? The Bitcoin price has bounced back after dropping, climbing to over 90K as US President Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick reportedly confirms a Trump bombshell. So now Elon Musk issued a drive crypto price warming. China is now considering ramping up its economic stimulus measures, something that previously pushed risk assets like Bitcoin higher. So we're seeing China slowly start to creep into this Bitcoin space. Why? Well, this one country, two systems, what we see in Hong Kong is, quote, here to stay, right? So we're seeing the Hong Kong ETF issuer now tell us, hey, China is now looking closer and closer into Bitcoin, right? We are looking into what everything is going on, right? Hong Kong has approved 4 more cryptocurrency exchanges within the past 3 to 4 months. Why did they do that? Well, as I told you guys, they're essentially the proxy for China right now. So China is going to be that testing ground for all things Bitcoin. They're going to be the testing ground for all things crypto. They're going to be the testing ground for everything that China would want to potentially do here, right? So we're going to see an economic boom in the United States led by many different policies that Donald Trump is implementing, but one is extremely out in the open and is easily copied, and that's the Bitcoin strategy. They're out there talking about all of this. And guess what, folks? There's a very close eyeballs on to everything that is going on. You can't tell me that Xi Jinping is not keeping a close eye on Donald Trump and what he is doing with Bitcoin. The orange man loving the orange coin. How can we not pay attention to what is going on here, right? As you guys are saying on the chat, my man All Nighter Hider is saying BTC as a risk on asset is subjective to one's use. And in fact, Michael Saylor came out the other day and said, hey, banks are going to start using Bitcoin. The largest nation state in the world is now going to use Bitcoin as a reserve asset. So is it a risk on asset? All of the risk has essentially been stripped away. And we're looking at this and saying, hey, Donald Trump, and China is looking at this and saying, hey, Donald Trump is now going to be very regulatory friendly towards Bitcoin. So we need to be regulatory friendly towards Bitcoin, because if we don't, we're going to get left behind. We need at least a few more superpower nation states to FOMO into Bitcoin. They could pump our bags. As McLovin is saying, he's asking how much Bitcoin, when will he be able to retire on his Bitcoin? Pretty soon, I think, if all of these things continue here. And as my man is saying, All Nighter Hider, the GOAT, smoke the like Cheech and Chong. But China has been rumored to be actively working on a Bitcoin strategic reserve, right? So it's not just me saying this like, hey, Brandon, you're absolutely crazy here. What the hell are you talking about? China is very anti-Bitcoin. Well, Trump is forcing China to do this Bitcoin backflip here. Beijing may set its sight on Bitcoin as part of de-dollarizing strategy. This is an article from March 3rd. It's March 26th. We're seeing China rumored to do this. Key takeaways. China is accelerating its efforts to build a strategic Bitcoin reserve amid evolving U.S. crypto regulations. The government allegedly sold the 194,000 Bitcoin seized from the Plus token scam. That's all alleged. We don't know if they've actually done that or not. It's interesting because the U.S. has not done a forensic audit on its seized Bitcoin. We don't know exactly how much Bitcoin the Chinese government has. They allegedly sold all of this. So if we're looking at these things, they don't seem to add up, right? Why are these governments now looking at Bitcoin and essentially trying to get rid of it, fleeing that? When Trump and his team has essentially come out and said, hey, this has been a multi-billion-dollar mistake when we sell off seized Bitcoin. What are we doing here, folks? We know that Bitcoin is the best performing asset in every single aspect and since its creation. So why aren't we holding on to it? It seems like a no-brainer. And now we're seeing the Hong Kong ETF issuer saying the quiet parts out loud. They're saying that China is now looking at this. They're looking into Web3 and might consider a stance on digital currencies, although crypto is banned. So it looks like the Chinese mainland, often serving as a testing ground, Hong Kong is always used as a lab for experiments, either in economies or new industries or sectors, he noted. So one country, two systems, as I was saying here. So the Donald Trump election has now changed the Chinese perspective on everything going on here. So it seems like Trump is essentially forcing a lot of these nation states to really start to evaluate Bitcoin. And that's essentially how influential Donald Trump is with all of this, right? I know we're not seeing it in the Bitcoin price. Many of you guys in the chat are talking about these nation states needing to come along to pump our bags, but it's beside the point. All the writing on the wall here is, hey, Bitcoin is going to win. All of these different nation states are going to continue to keep buying Bitcoin. They're going to keep attempting to scoop up Bitcoin as much as possible. Now, with that, right, we're going to see more and more of these ETF products come up. I did a video yesterday about the ETP BlackRock is launching in Europe. So that's adding more and more access to Bitcoin, more products access to Bitcoin here going forward. And so basically the beach ball is being pushed underneath the ocean. Eventually it's going to skyrocket to the top. And Bitcoin goes through its waves. We all know this. Look, chop sideways for months at a time. And then all of a sudden, towards the end of the year, Q3, we saw the massive run up that we did. These are just how Bitcoin cycles work. But the beauty of Bitcoin is that you can hold it in cold storage here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys some free sats here from my friends over at the Bitcoin Well. They're absolutely great. They are the #1 exchange where you guys can buy Bitcoin. And in order to do that, we will give you some Wishing Well tokens. So what they do, every time you buy Bitcoin from Bitcoin Well, you can set up a DCA. Every time you do that, they give you Bitcoin with these Wishing Well tokens. So you have the chance to win 1 million sats here. There goes the coin down there. Boom, 210 sats. Somebody scoop that up quickly so you guys can continue to stack as much sats as possible. And if you're not here and you're watching this after the fact, make sure to set on that notification so you join that live stream. Smoke the like Cheech and Chong. Subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend so you guys know when these live streams are going on. Down Under Blues, what's going on, boss? You said you can't hold on to Bitcoin because you can't see it. Bitcoin's imaginary. That's what my wife says. Hey, tell your wife she's right, man. She can go and buy some more of this imaginary token at bitcoinwell.com/greencandle. Sign up today so you guys can start stacking that imaginary token. But the HK Asia Holdings, right? They're stacking this imaginary token 1 sat at a time, it seems. The opposition politics is slowing down the process. Look, I think all of these guys here, they're not necessarily slowing down the process of Bitcoin adoption. They're simply trying to resist it. But what they're doing is they're giving more notice to Bitcoin, right? I mean, all of these guys, they essentially notice what is going on. They're like, hey, what is this thing? We hear Bitcoin all over the news. We got to check it out. We even hear it when Bitcoin's price isn't even doing anything. We're not hearing it because Bitcoin's going to $1 million a coin and we missed the boat. We're hearing it because all of these companies are starting to look at Bitcoin. We're hearing it because China is looking at a shift in what Bitcoin is going on here. So this is why you need to continue to stack Bitcoin because of what is all going on here. The writing is on the wall, folks. We're seeing more and more people start to implement a Bitcoin policy. It's essentially you need a Bitcoin policy or you're going to get left behind at this point. So I'm going to be actually, releasing some videos here in the not too distant future about how I've been living on Bitcoin in certain cities around the world. So stay tuned for that. But we are looking at how HK Asia is adopting Bitcoin, and it's the first publicly traded company in Greater China to adopt, right? The two countries, one system. He's a longtime Bitcoin advocate with extensive experience across China and Southeast Asia. And the move was driven by both long-term conviction in a favorable shift and the posture in Hong Kong. He said that the company had spent months consulting with regulators and public market investors and local partners before executing the transition. So now it looks to integrate Bitcoin both on the balance sheet assets and into its business model. This includes plan to roll out Bitcoin-related offerings through its retail footprint, such as ATMs and prepaid Bitcoin products. So it's looking like it's not just putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet, folks. They're looking to implement Bitcoin as part of its business model. We got a troll in the chat saying, Frank, is Bitcoin a huge Ponzi scheme? It is not, brother. It's decentralized currency that is a fixed supply. Now, a Ponzi scheme would be a bunch of people buying in, and then there would be a giant rug pull. Because it's decentralized, Bitcoin is immune to these giant rug pulls, especially when it's a multi-trillion-dollar asset. Fiat currency in a bank account is somewhat imaginary when you really think about it. And that's true. These guys, it's essentially a number on a screen. If you look at fiat currency currently, 90% of it you can't hold physically. I've got a couple dollars here that you could maybe hold physically. But if I were to if I were to go to the bank and try to get 100,000, I don't have 100,000 in my bank account. But if I were to have 100,000 of it, and I would go to the bank and want to pull it all in cash, most likely would not be able to do that, right? So it's just number on a screen, essentially. Frank is asking, what is the difference between BTC and Bitcoin? It's the same thing, brother. They might have Bitcoin Cash or some of these other altcoins. This is why you should say Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. Don't worry about these other altcoins and what they're doing. And Down Under Blues is saying, very true. You can't withdraw big dollars out of the bank. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Your money is not actually your money if it's in a bank, right? This is why you need to go get with Bitcoin Well. They were giving you sats. I gave you guys some sats earlier today. I don't know if somebody got this QR code, but all of these things, right? You could hold your own Bitcoin in self-custody. Continue to do that. Don't be looking at what the hell is going on in all these different places. Look at the writing on the wall here, folks. We're seeing HK Asia adopt Bitcoin, right? We're seeing all of these different things continue to truck on. So with that, why would you doubt Bitcoin in any way, shape, or form, right? At this point, it doesn't make any sense to doubt what is going on in the Bitcoin space. I've got a great interview that I did with NVK that not enough of you have been watching. So if you go to my channel, you go to the latest video that I dropped here, go check this out. Go check out this video here and go learn about some of the great stuff going on in the Bitcoin space. Smoke the like Cheech and Chong, as my man All Nighter Hider says. Hit the subscribe button, tell a friend to tell a friend, and I will see you guys all at the next one.